6, 2023, and I'm calling to order the virtual meeting of the Los Angeles Probation Oversight Commission. I am Frankie Carrillo, Chair of the Commission. As we start today, I want to give a special thank you to Commissioner Dominique Nung. Commissioner Nung is one of the original commissioners on the POC, and her contribution over the last 2 years has been stellar. Dominique is a tireless activist for justice through her professional roles previously at Children's Defense Fund, and now with the Young Women's Freedom Center. She has brought great knowledge to the Commission about Title 15 and the BSCC, and she has come to every meeting prepared with insightful questions that are laser focused on keeping the youth and adults served by probation safe. Dominique, we will miss you and we wish you all the best, and we look forward to hearing from you at our meetings, giving public comment and expert panel presentations. Thank you, and looking forward to hearing from you, obviously. With that, I have to say thank you again for your service to the POC, but most importantly to the vulnerable youth of LA County and the state of California. With that, I will turn it over to Wendy Julian, our Executive Director, to explain how you can participate during this meeting. And then Wendy, please call the roll.
Thanks, Chair Carrillo, and I just want to share in your gratitude to Commissioner Nung. I'm not at all looking forward to having to cut her off after 2 minutes on the public comments because I love listening to everything she brings to the meetings, and we'll miss her a lot. I welcome everyone to our Probation Oversight Commission meeting today. Public participation is a part of the purpose of this meeting, and we really encourage you to participate by commenting on each agenda item or at the end of the meeting on items not on the agenda. You also are welcome to communicate with us via email. You can email us at info@poc.lacounty.gov, and you can make comments there that we can add to the public record or that we can accept anonymously. So for the way this is going to work today, we'll go through each agenda item, and there'll be a presentation, if any, and then Chair Carrillo will invite public comment. We'll take public comment, and then the commission will take any action that they are planning to take. The way that you would be pre-registered today, but you can usually do that when you register for the WebEx, or today you can use the raise your hand function, which is the little hand icon at the bottom of your screen, or you may have to press the 3 dots to get to the more icons to get to the raise your hand function. If you're calling in, you can raise your hand by dialing *3 on your phone. And then once we call you by your phone number, you have to dial *6 to accept the unmute request. Everybody will have 2 minutes today unless the chair determines otherwise based on how many people are signed up. And in the chat, you can see our email address. You're welcome to send emails there, and we'll attach them to the official minutes of the meeting. We're broadcasting live on Facebook today. You can watch the meeting now or later on Facebook, but we don't engage with users there. You can also follow our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram at LA County POC. Lots more information there. Chat. That's only seen by the host of the meeting, Janae and Ismail in the background, not by the commissioners, and it's not compliant with the Brown Act, so it doesn't get attached to the public record. Bienvenida a personas que están en nuestra compañía hoy en esta reunión que prefieren hacer sus
Wendy,
comentarios públicos en español. Les daremos 4 minutos. Podemos traer. Janae, did I miss something?
yes, you're cutting,
Okay,
cutting in and out. So if we could have Chair Carrillo, if you don't mind continuing for us, please.
And my audio.
Yeah, your audio is cutting in and out, and we can't make out what you're saying. Now we can't hear you.
Janae, can you call the roll?
Yes, I will go ahead and call the roll. Commissioners, when I call your name, please unmute yourself. So I'll start with Commissioner Dolores Canales.
Here, thank you.
Commissioner Sean Garcia-Lace.
I'm here, thanks.
Commissioner Shay Jackson.
Good afternoon, here.
Commissioner Melinda Kakani.
Present.
Commissioner Sam Lewis,
Here.
Commissioner Don Meredith,
Here.
Commissioner Dominique Nong,
Good afternoon, present.
and Chair Frankie Carrillo.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Chair Carrillo. You can continue. Thank you.
Thank you both for doing that. Now we will proceed with the agenda for today. Item number 2 is the approval of January 12th meeting minute meetings. Do we have any written public comments or live public comments for this item, Jay? Or Wendy?
No, we do not have any written or commenters on this item.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, can I have a motion to approve the January 12th meeting minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Gonzales, and I saw a second by Commissioner Vice Chair Jackson. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, hearing none, commissioners, please unmute yourselves and vote with a voice vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
It sounds like the motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 3, in which we will open the floor for additional nominations for the position of Chair, Vice Chair, and Secretary of the POC. If Wendy, if you can still hear me, maybe you can turn off your video. Maybe that might help a little bit. But if you can proceed, if not, maybe Janae can do it.
I think I reconnected successfully. Does that sound better?
Perfect.
Okay. So actually, before we start this actually ends up as great timing. Thank you for covering for me there. I'd like to introduce Esther Lim from Supervisorial District 1, who has some comments she'd like to make before we move towards our election.
Great, thank you so much, Wendy. Hi, everyone, POC. Thanks so much for making time for me to be here and for the participants of the POC and those who are listening to the POC Commission meeting. I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Hilda Solis, who represents the 1st District. My name is Esther Lim, and as Wendy said, I serve as her Justice Deputy. I'm actually really happy to be here on behalf of the Supervisor to present a very small token of gratitude to her appointee to the Probation Oversight Commission, Chair Frankie Carrillo. The Supervisor would like to thank Chair Carrillo for his leadership, serving as the inaugural chair for the POC, and a second and last term when he was voted in again by his POC members as chair. So I have a commendation scroll. Sorry, we're doing this virtually. But I have a commendation scroll for Chair Carrillo, which reads, "In recognition of dedicated service to the affairs of the community and for the civic pride demonstrated by numerous contributions for the benefit of all the residents of Los Angeles County." And it's signed by Supervisor Hilda Solis. Hopefully you can see it. So, congratulations. And thank you, Chair Carrillo, for your leadership as chair. Thanks so much, Wendy. And then Chair Carrillo will connect to see how we can get this scroll to you.
Thank you so much, Esther. Appreciate that. I'll save my comments, Wendy, for after the vote.
Can you hear me?
There's an
I
echo, but
hear
we can hear
myself
you
with
twice.
an echo.
Unmute the laptop, Wendy, and then.
Okay, I think I have finally figured
Perfect.
this out. I apologize for the technical difficulties today. Thank you, Esther, for that, and especially thank you, Chair Carrillo, for having made this first 2 years of the Probation Oversight Commission as effective and simple as possible for the staff. We're really thankful for everything that you've done, a lot of time and effort in leading the commission through its development, and I'm excited for the next stages because of the work that you've put in on the foundation. The Probation Oversight Commission has an ordinance that requires that we elect officers every year at our annual meeting in January. That's why we're doing this today. At our December 8th meeting, the commissioners presented nominations. They nominated Commissioner Jackson for chair, Commissioner Kakani for vice chair, and Commissioner Garcia-Lays for secretary. The only restriction in the bylaws about terms for officers is that the chair can only serve 2 consecutive terms. Therefore, Chair Carrillo, who has served since the beginning, is not eligible to run again for that position. I'd like to first ask if there are any further nominations for the positions of the officers other than those that I've listed. Okay, hearing none, we will go forward. I think we'll do these as 3 separate motions, if that works for you, so that'll be nice and clean in the minutes. So we will have an election, and since there's only 1 candidate for each election, I think we can just vote yes or no. And the first vote will be for Commissioner Ashay Jackson as the chair of the POC for 2023. So is there someone who will make a motion for that to elect Chair Jackson as the chair of the POC, to elect Ashay Jackson as chair of the POC for 2023?
I'll make the motion.
In a second. Okay, great. So I see a motion by Commissioner Meredith, second by Chair Carrillo. So I'll read the roll and just you can say yes or no. Commissioner Canales?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia-Leyes?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kakani?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Nong?
Yes.
And Chair Carrillo.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that passes unanimously, and we'll move on now to the election for vice chair. So would someone like to make a motion for the election of Commissioner Melinda Kakani as vice chair of the Probation Oversight Commission for 2023?
I make a motion for Ms. Kakani.
Okay, that's the motion by Commissioner Canales. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Nong. And we'll go ahead and call the roll. So this is for vice chair. Commissioner Canales?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia-Leyes?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kakani?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Nong?
Yes.
And Chair Carrillo.
Yes.
Thank you. And then finally, we have the nomination of Commissioner Garcia-Leyes as Secretary of the Probation Oversight Commission for 2023. Is there a motion?
I make a motion for Commissioner Garcia-Leyes to be secretary.
Thank you. Secretary Canales has made that motion. Is there a second?
I second that.
Was that Commissioner Nong?
No, Millie Kakani.
Commissioner Kakani. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and I'll read through the roll again. Commissioner Canales?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia-Leyes?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Commissioner Kakani?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Nong?
Yes.
And Chair Carrillo.
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Chair Carrillo, with your new slate of officers for 2023.
Congratulations, everyone. As I'm transitioning into just a good old-fashioned commissioner and leaving the role of chair, I want to just congratulate all of you for your new positions. I have to go back to what Esther Lim said, and I want to just thank just the Supervisor Solis for just entrusting me with this appointment and appointing me to the POC. It's such an honor and privilege. And as Wendy said, to be elected by this body twice, it's been a big responsibility. And as Wendy echoed, I try to make it as simple as possible for myself and everyone else. But the work is obviously not simple. And it's really important. And I'm grateful that we have not only surpassed maybe our own expectations, but that the work the foundation has been created for the work to continue. And so with that, I just want to thank everybody for allowing me and giving me the privilege to be your chair. And now I pass it over to our new chair, Chair Jackson, if you have any words.
We can't hear you, Chair Johnson.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Commissioner Carrillo, and I want to join everyone else in thanking you for setting such a strong example of leadership for this commission. And to my fellow commissioners, I thank you all for choosing me. When I accepted the nomination, it was really important that I chose myself for this position. It was assuring that, you know, other people believed that I was capable, but a part of me needed self-approval to accept it. Why? Because I think there's a lot at stake. There's a lot to stand for, against, and I needed to take ownership of that responsibility, and I wanted to be honest with myself about the possibilities and the challenges ahead. And so I reached out to, you know, numerous stakeholders asking for their insights into POC's strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes that meant I had to Google contact information to request meetings, but I was determined to get honest and diverse feedback and to determine how specifically I could address the needs of this body, the young people and adults, and this reform movement at large with my leadership. And I believe I'm able to do that. And so as chair of this commission, I want to reassert my values, which are accountability, integrity, honesty, perpetual learning, and self-care. And most of these values I've discussed or demonstrated, but I wanted to offer some assurance that these are the principles that inform my steps as a commissioner and a longtime advocate. I included the self-care piece because I think it's the one thing that gets buried in the value structure, right? But it's the one thing that I believe truly carries me through this work. It carries most of us through this work. And when you're trying to transform or, you know, dismantle an institution with a long, deep, dark history, you can start to attack yourself, especially if you're someone who is system impacted and not seeing the results that you want to. You know, someone reached out to me recently and they were upset that I had not lived up to their expectations as a commissioner. And it felt that there was some need for me to rescue them from their circumstance. And I wanted to do that. And there was some survivor's remorse in there that truly wanted me to see, you know, different for that person. And it drove me to a lot of self-doubt, despite the countless ways that I'm showing up to improve the conditions and outcomes for people affected by this system in ways that are not always seen. And, you know, I'm learning that part of that care involves acceptance. It involves using the feedback to correct, but not to always internalize or personalize, even though the mission is very personal to me. So I just wanted to insert that human piece to help manage expectations, because that's important to me as I try to navigate what feels like uncharted waters, even though I've been around for quite a while. And so I'm looking forward to sharing my priorities and my goals as the result of some internal and external evaluations as they unfold. Those are individual and collective goals and priorities. And so I hope that everyone here will participate in an upcoming survey that we'll be conducting and spread the word, because we need to hear from you for guidance. I guess I'll close out by saying that I'm excited about the chair chapter for myself, for this commission. And I hope that you will accept and appreciate my efforts and hold me accountable when needed. And most importantly, extend grace as you're able to. I thank you for making me Chairwoman Jackson. It's an honor and a privilege.
Congratulations, you're going to be great. Okay, let's move on to, actually, since we have some time, I want to give the vice chair and secretary a chance to speak as well. Forgive me for just about to move on without calling on you. So, Vice Chair Kakan, if you don't mind sharing some words, and then you're up, Sean.
I don't have anything prepared, but I am super honored to sit in this position. Many of my colleagues and partners who are part of the Los Angeles Youth Uprising Coalition worked to create the Probation Oversight Commission so that the decades of harm and unaccountability would finally be accounted for. So I hope to be a part of living up to the work and the intentions of those who showed up week after week to organize and speak on behalf of impacted folks at PRIT meetings. And I am here for any and all feedback, and I'm super excited about what's to come and to work with Chair Jackson and Secretary Garcia-Lays.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be on the team. I expect those who've been participating in these meetings have a sense of how I operate, what I think, and they should expect more of the same. I will tell you, I told my 11-year-old daughter that I had been nominated a month or two ago, but I hadn't been elected yet. And she asked me some questions, and I said, well, no one else has been nominated, but it's not done yet. So you can't say I won the election yet. And she's been teasing me ever since about the idea that I could be the only person nominated and not consider it a done deal. But I will let her know today when she gets home from school that it's happened, and she'll be very happy. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And Commissioner Canales, I can't close this item without allowing you to share some words. Everyone else has spoken, and I want to just save the best for last. So if you don't mind sharing some closing words as you're exiting your secretary role for us.
Thank you, Commissioner Carrillo. I just want to say, thank you very much for having me as secretary these past 2 years. But it was really the strength of the incredible team that I've been working alongside. It's not a position that you stand alone in. Had it not been for our amazing executive director, Wendy, and Chair Carrillo and Commissioner Jackson. And then behind the scenes, we have Janae, she's really the rock, right? And so, I'm just grateful for the team and the team of all the commissioners together that has brought us this far, even with the struggles and the hurdles along the way and not making everybody happy. But we know we are doing the best that we can, and we're achieving for better as well. So thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to what's ahead.
Thank you so much. Okay, now we can move on, guys. Item number 4, which is on the agenda as an update from the Los Angeles County Office of Inspector General on updates pertaining to the El Monte case. Wendy has an announcement about this item, and then we will take public comments, and I will move us to table this item. Wendy?
Thank you. My comment is to apologize that this item remained on the agenda. The Office of the Inspector General actually did inform us in time that the report is just not ready for publication yet. That's the only reason it's not attached to the agenda today. Eric is here, and Eric, you're welcome to give an update on it, but we will be sharing that report once it's ready for publication and invite Eric and back to be able to speak about it. So Eric, is there anything you wanted to say with respect to that?
First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Just that, as you know, whenever we look at an issue, we want to be as comprehensive as possible, which means following all the information and looking at policies and making recommendations. So in looking at this situation, it led us down that road. So that's why there's a delay in providing it. I'm very hopeful, though, by the next meeting, you will have had it and we can discuss it. But that's the delay. It's just a very terrible situation, and we just want to be as thorough as possible. But I do believe, fingers crossed, that you will have it by the next meeting.
Thank you. And again, my apologies for not making that adjustment to the agenda in time.
Thank you both. Wendy, before we move on to a motion, is there any public comments on this?
Thank you. There is no one with their hand raised, although since my audio was cutting off, I'll just remind folks that we have public comment after every agenda item. And in order to do so, you just click on the little raise your hand button at the bottom. And if you're on the phone, you dial *3, that will raise your hand and we'll call on you. But as of now, we have no public comment on this item, Chair Carrillo.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, so I move that we table item number 4 until a future meeting when the report is complete. And I'm looking for a second on this.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Chair Jackson. Do you have any questions or comments? So floor is open to discuss this. I know that OIG was here to give us an echo of what Wendy said, but it seems pretty self-explanatory that we can't move on until the report is finalized. So it doesn't seem like there was any discussion on it. Wendy, can we get a vote, please?
Yeah, so we're voting to table this motion. Chair Carrillo, seconded by Vice Chair Jackson. Please vote yes or no on tabling it. Commissioner Canales?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia-Leyes?
Yes.
Commissioner Jackson?
Aye.
Commissioner Kakani?
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis?
Yes.
Commissioner Meredith?
Yes.
Commissioner Nung?
Yes.
And Chair Carrillo.
Yes.
Okay, so that's unanimous and we will re-agendize that in the future.
Thank you, Wendy. Thanks, everyone. Okay, moving on to item number 5, we will hear a report from Chief Probation Officer Adolfo Gonzales on any updates to the 2022 priorities he shared in October 22, and share any new priorities for this year, 2023. Chief Gonzales, it's nice to see you. The floor is yours.
Definitely. First of all, congratulations, Chairman Carrillo, for your 2 years of dedicated service. Taking this probation commission to where it's at today couldn't have been done without your leadership. And I want to thank all of you for your continued support. Those of you who will continue on the commission, I'm looking forward to this coming year and the years to come to make a better organization with your help. And I also want to acknowledge Chairwoman Jackson. You're making history. We had the first mayor of Los Angeles be a woman. Our board of supervisors are all women, and you're right with them. So thank you for that, and congratulations on that. What I plan to do today is go over a quick update of 2022, get into our 2023 goals, priorities, and during that priority, I would like to speak on the topic of the disposal of surplus firearms that you might have seen in the news yesterday. If you're okay with that, Chairman Carrillo, can I begin?
Absolutely.
First of all, again, thank you. So recap our goals for 2022. Let me just start off first with we're continuing to improve the continuum of care for our young people coming in. We're trying to do a lot more to get the kids out and not to come in to our facilities. We've been working with the Department of Youth Development, and I reached out to meet the new director so we can sit down and go over our priorities together. On the part of the Board of State Community Corrections BSCC effort, we continue to maintain compliance with the BSCC Title 15 regulations, but it's not been easy. It's been very challenging. As you know, we have to bring in additional staff, have incentives in order to be able to comply with education, programming, visitation, and services. That also ties into the Department of Justice MOU agreement, what's called a settlement agreement to meet all the requirements on the DOJ. And with that, I'd like to report some positive things. We have been able to connect or establish the room safety checks. I went to Central and saw them in operation. I feel comfortable that this will give us more accurate reporting when the rooms are being checked and clicked in by our staff. Once we get that Wi-Fi operational, both Barry J. Nordhoff and the Central Juvenile Hall, those downloads will be done instantaneously, immediately. Right now, the staff has to go to each of the units, type into the device, come back to a station and a cradle and download the data. We want to get it more seamless, more timely. Along with that is the completion of the installation of the closed circuit TVs, security TVs at Barry J. Nordhoff. I'm being told the supply chain is delaying our full implementation. I met with the director of ISD, Mr. Hollins, to see what can we do to expedite that, or at least temporarily come up with some solutions. He and his team have met, and they're coming up with some recommendations. The recommendation is to bring in a temporary camera system that would allow us to monitor what's going on until the new ones come in for full implementation. The concern is whether or not those cameras will have security features in them. I think that's something we can work through as we identify what cameras will be available. Many of you have heard of the Ring cameras, the ATT cameras, all the cameras that you see in the stores. We want to make sure we have something in place instead of waiting until the end of the year. So we're working on that right now with ISD. Excuse me. Home-like improvements. That's another part of the requirements. If you've been to Barry J. North, you've seen that the unit's TV has been upgraded. We're still in phase 1, wrapping that up, also at Central. And then we're getting ready to go to phase 2. Phase 1 consisted of the TV unit, unit Z1 and Z2, and the girls' care and Central Juvenile Hall, and receiving for the boys. At Central, they're about 95% complete, I'm told. When I was there a few weeks back, I saw the progress being made. So I'm glad to see that the work's going forward. And the phase 2 is going to be going to the CEO for the board. So the board is being drafted. It should be for the February meeting. And phase 2 will include living units in both halls and tentatively scheduled for completion by December 2023. Like I said earlier, the Wi-Fi being installed in Juvenile Hall will really make a difference, and ISD is closely monitoring that. And I do want to add on the food contract, this has been very, to say the least, discouraging to me. Why it's taking so long? But we're trying to get the scope of work ready, drafted, and put this out by the end of the fiscal year. I want us to really take a hard look at the food. And I'm not happy with that right now. I just tell you that up front. Even though we're giving more portions to the kids, when I talk to them, they're still not eating the larger portions. They're just throwing it away. We have surveyed the kids before, and they provided some insights. So we did change the menu back in May, but it's still not enough. I think more can be done. So I'm hoping that would go forward. And as far as staff and youth safety, as you all know, and you've been to the halls many times, low staffing numbers really impact our operations, both for safety and security, for programming, visitations, and everything else. That's why last year, the CEO's office, county council, DHRO, and the board approved the incentive program to get more staff to come in. And yes, it helped because we're able to provide programming. I think the only time that I'm told that we didn't have this is one of the days over the holidays. I'm not sure if it's New Year's weekend, one of those days, but that's been very challenging, trying to get staff to come in. On the positive side, with the approval of the hiring 150 staff, we've been making some progress there. We have 15 that are already in the facility. We have 26 that'll be coming out. And then we have another academy class starting on February 24th. So literally we're going back-to-back academies that will really help us get our numbers up there. And right now for the third academy, we have 20 plus people that we're looking at getting final clearance. And I'm hoping to get more than that for the February 24th academy. And as you know, we did move 11 young men over to Campus Kilpatrick. Many young people are attending college courses, and we're finalizing an agreement to expand career technical education at Campus Kilpatrick. We are partnering with various community-based organizations. I want to thank ARC, Hidden Dogs in Action, Five Keys, and others that have been supporting our program. We also have two, I call them dogs or canine programs that are underway at Campus Kilpatrick and one at Barry J. I want to thank Supervisor Solis for her leadership on that, and the board for getting that, what they call Pause for Life contract going forward. So we're looking at that as well. And a couple of weeks ago, I met with the interim director of DYD to talk about hiring credible messengers. When I was at Barry J. North a couple of weekends back, I spoke to 3 of the young men who have been cleared and ready to start, and they're excited about coming on board, and I'm excited about having them with us. We're working very closely to expand the program, not just to Campus Kilpatrick. I want to see the credible messengers at our juvenile halls, as well as the East camps. When I go to the East camps, they don't have any credible messengers, and they can certainly use them as well. So we're working on that. Hiring, and like I said, we had the academy restarted in January this past January the 12th. February 16th, they graduated. They're already in the facilities. And as I recall, I don't know if I mentioned it last time, we did something different this time around. We brought the cadets or recruits into the facility while they're in the academy to see firsthand what they're going to get into, both at Central and for a week, and then for Barry J for the second week. And we got some very great feedback from the young men and women that went through the process. And it helps us better going forward to develop mentors to keep them here. Usually you hire somebody to go 11 weeks, you put them in the institution, a day, 2 days, 3 days later, they're leaving. So you spend all this time, all this money, all this training, and they leave. I'm glad to say none of that have left. And the majority of the 15 new recruits were women, and they're still here with us, which is, I'm very proud of that. And the other academy will be doing the same thing. 1 week orientation at Central, 1 week orientation at Barry J. Nordhoff, get them the insights of what's going to be looking at, and changing the mindset of how we hired in the past. I told my staff, at the graduating class, I don't want guards. I don't want referees looking for violations. I want coaches, mentors, people who want to help develop our young men and women for the future. I want us to think of all of our kids as our kids. They're our kids. And what can we do working together? So my comments to the last graduating class was just that. I don't want you guarding. I want you being a coach and a mentor. We all make mistakes. All of us make mistakes. But we got to be there to help them up. There's a saying, if you fall down 7 times, you get up 8 times. Right? So I think that new hire staff we're bringing in, we'll hopefully start making a difference for us. And on top of that, we're also adding the mentorship program that Chief Fletcher talked about. And of course, we're working very closely with DYD as we, not only the training, but the recruitment, and everything has to be aligned with Youth Justice Reimagined. The recruiting, the selection, the interviews, the training, the mentorship. So we're going in the direction of Youth Justice Reimagined. So I already made an appointment to meet. I should have a secretary make an appointment so I can meet the new director of DYD. I've not met him yet. I hope you have, and I'm looking forward to that opportunity. On the adult side, officer safety is always a concern. The well-being and paramount of AB 109, not just the staff, but our clients. Every time something happens in the news, I'm always calling Howard or Richard. Is that one of our clients? Is he or she involved in this incident? What can we do to support the staff, the families, whomever? Because that's something that's important, that we're on top of it, that we're there supporting our staff, but also supporting our clients. The PSRT continues to collaborate with community partners to ensure comprehensive and support services that are provided to our clients. We're working with the community to allocate $43 additional million for services and resources to this population. That's being wrapped up by the PSRT committee, and will be going to the CEO's office for final approval. Those are $43 million that we didn't have originally when we set our budget. And the AB 109 strategic planning program enhancement continues to work towards comprehensive continuing program enhancement for AB 109 clients. And for our staff to do in-depth review of the case planning, insofar as resources, staffing, allocation, feasibility of updated items. Let's not do things just because we did them the same way all the time. What can we do differently? And then I don't know if you heard of, but we have a mobile response center. We have 2 of them, where we take our mobile resource centers out into the community to our clients to provide services, not to arrest, suppress, and apprehend, but to provide services, connection with other county providers, like the Department of Mental Health, Public Health, even Public Defender's Office. What resources can we provide? And if you have not seen one of those out in the community, I'll invite you to reach out to us and see if we can connect you and invite you to one of our visits so you can come out there and see what we're doing in the community. In addition, we applied for a grant through BSCC to increase the number of mobile resource centers. As you know, having 2 for the kind of Los Angeles is not really sufficient. We can use 2 just in the downtown area and what's called quote unquote Skid Row area, but we need them in most of our communities. And I think it's better to have us for going to the community where our clients live than try to have them come and visit us in our office. And as far as SB 678 clients, core supervision, basic core supervision, we continue to support evidence-based practices for adult supervision. We also talked about having more in-person visits now that the COVID restrictions have been loosening up, where we can actually have more visitation, more face-to-face. And just so you know, just so that we have over 21,000 adult clients under adult community field supervision. And some of them cannot make the office visits. They have a lot of hardship, whether it's transportation, family, work, whatever. That should not be a reason to violate them. And our position is that we're not going to do that. We're going to go out into community and support them where they're at. We don't want to go to the place of employment and then have them talk to their bosses that we're there checking up on them. No, we're going to make sure that we're out there where they are, where they're needed, whether it's a home visit, out in the field contact, or they can come into the office if they're able to do so. But we need to still be mindful of the COVID numbers, even though the numbers are going down right now. They were really high up to the winter time. We continue to support our field offices, what they call community advisory committees. Members of the community come in and give us advice, but also the community resource fairs that we provide at most of our community centers to support our clients, their families with community resources, programming, job readiness, and people have hired people on the spot. Last I heard that when I was in Long Beach Community College, UPS hired 4 of our clients on the spot. And I think that goes a long way. Let me transition to the 2023 goals. And I think these are our new goals for this coming year. Excuse me for drinking them. I was feeling a little under the weather yesterday, and I wanted to make sure I was here today. The first thing we're looking at, the elimination of OC spray in the developmental disabled units, as well as the girls and gender expansive units. As you know, there was a motion that was passed that we needed to do this. And I want to thank the OIG and POC that are monitoring this. They need to report back to the board every 14 days as to our progress. And they've done that already in the first report, and the second one's coming up here soon. We're working very closely with DYD as well. We need to meet this requirement by February 27th, which is very kind of like a tight deadline, but we're prepared to meet that deadline of the 27th of eliminating the OC spray from those facilities or those units. Probation staff is working with these units right now to receive additional training. One of the things that staff was asking for is additional training and de-escalation. And how can we communicate? How can we interact better? Just a number of initiatives taking place. One is the additional training, looking at training that LACO provides to their teachers to deal with or work with kids that have developmental disabilities. The other thing is working with DYD for credible messengers. That's part of the motion. And like I said, one of the areas that we're going to be looking at will be the young woman's freedom, because DYD tells me that they don't have that population working with it to support our kids. So we'll be working to see what else we can do. So they'll be reaching out to other agencies to support us in that effort. I think it's critical they all work together to really, and not just stop there with these 2 units, but also what are the plans going forward to implement a 2019 phase-out plan. And we're working with the OIG on that because that elimination is for both juvenile halls. And there were 4 phases on that. They're going to be working with, like I said, OIG had a number of recommendations on that I think are something we can follow going forward. So we have a plan or a blueprint that we can follow going forward. So we've been meeting with them as well to see what we can do to address those in the future. But the main focus right now, I'll tell you, has to be central. Those couple of units, development disabled units, the girls, and the gender expansive units. Then we'll expand. We evaluate, see how that goes, and then we expand to the rest of the juvenile halls. And that's what I said earlier, that I want to see more credible messengers. I think we need them for the entire facility, both central and at Barry J. Norda. And let me go to Narcan. I'm not sure if you've seen the training and demonstration of Narcan. Some of you might be aware of it. It's kind of like a nasal spray that you can apply to a person who's under distress. And if it has opiates, it kind of revives them back. If they're not under the influence of opiates, I'm told it has no negative effect. This training took place after the board motion that was passed by Supervisor Hahn and second by Supervisor I forget Van Horsbath. Yeah, Horsbath. And we started right away. We trained 28 officers, staff to do the train the trainers. Just yesterday, we trained another group of about 20 or 25 staff. They're going to be going into the facilities to train our staff. We also got the policy procedure drafted and published. on the use of the Narcan. And I had a demonstration a couple of days ago on what the device looks like and how you apply it. We want to make sure that everybody knows that you can carry this. It's like a little container on your person, but you cannot be in the heat. It has to have an cool temperature. We can carry some on our person, but also keep some in the offices as needed. And I think once we do that, we also plan to train the entire department. And we can do that already through virtual trainings that we can at least learn how to apply it if you come across it in a case where you need it. I'm also told that the Juvenile Courthouse Services already has that, but I haven't spoken to them to confirm that. But I know that we have about 100 units in each of our facilities, Barry J. North and Central. I've seen the actual application, the device, and the good thing is that it only has one dosage, so you can't expose or overdose the individual. Once you activate it, it locks into place, and there's no more chemical, no more substance to be sprayed. So that one we should be done. I'm hoping that we got to go back to the board in 60 days. I'm hoping we get the Narcan done in the next 3 to 4 weeks, get everybody trained in the halls, and then get back to report to the board on that one. So that to me is a great lifesaver if you can get that on there. We talked about also increasing this coming year as a priority, increasing programming in juvenile hall institutions, both programming and behavioral management programs for the youth. This is something that's also requirement of BSCC, but also the Department of Justice Settlement Agreement. And I want to expand that to not just programming activities, but also meaningful programming, education, working with legal, see what else we can do differently than we have in the past. And then, as you know, one of the motions also talked about a step-down program for the DJJ or Secure Use Track. We're working very closely with DYD and other partners to create a step-down housing options and programs in the community. I'm hoping that we get the DJJ youth returning, that we're able to transition them out into the step-down. And even some of our kids we have now at Secure Use Track, Campus Kilpatrick, could step down as well. We're working with ARC and Amity to identify bed capacity. They can also provide comprehensive programming. The young people will benefit from transitioning into the community and not in the institution. And the contractors are underway right now, and we have to report back to the board in 60 days. So we need to expand the contract that we have with ARC and Amity to allow us to get more housing. And as far as the Secure Use Track facility plan, the executive team is meeting with stakeholders to continue to develop a comprehensive feasibility plan that incorporates or considers probation facilities that may be able to house our population. This is ongoing, and we'll be working with the board offices as well. And I'm also glad to report that the pretrial services, we're working very closely with Justice Care and Opportunity Department to transition that over as we get closer to the end program with pretrial services, moving over to the Justice Care and Opportunity Department. And overall organizational change, employee wellness is support services includes counseling for our staff, peer support, the chaplain program, another workforce or for the workforce for our staff or also for their families as needed. As you know, we had some tragedies last year. One of our deputy probation officers was brutally murdered in her house. That impacted a lot of our coworkers, a lot of our staff, a lot of probation department, and even some people that worked around her. So we want to make sure we have support, especially mental health support for our staff as well. And we continue with professional development. We have to increase our employee wellness, professional development opportunity for growth, both personally and professionally. And one of the key initiatives that's going to be coming up next year is the Anti-Recidivism, Diversion, and Inclusion Initiative that is countywide. Right now, we have a group of volunteers that are helping us with this effort, hoping to be able to select or appoint some permanent people that can really drive this initiative. It's important that we all take that into consideration in everything we do. And then diversity and inclusion should apply to everything that we're doing. And with that, let me transition now to the weapon surplus disposal. I don't know what else to call it. Sale of guns. Let me just be clear. I do not approve. It's not a priority of mine or us to sell any kind of guns. The guns that we're talking about from 2020 were county purchased weapons that were used by the employees for whatever reason since 1998. They had not been disposed of. So you have basically 2 or 3 storages or closets, whatever you want to call them, where you have all these weapons just sitting there. So Chief Leyva back in 2020, as you know, he worked for the Sheriff's Department. So the sheriffs are used to selling guns or returning guns, however they manage their gun program, wanted to do the same thing here. But since he was unable to do that, he was put in contact with our Internal Services Bureau to see about what we can do to dispose of somewhere between 300, 350 back in 2020 that were considered surplus because they were no longer replaceable guns for the new model that were brought in. These handguns were purchased directly from the manufacturer for use for the 130 officers that were employed in special enforcement operations or high-risk field assignments. These were not what I call confiscated guns. Whenever we work in the field with law enforcement and guns are confiscated, that particular agency, law enforcement agency, would take possession of the guns. We do not do that. As this was the first time the probation was attempting to liquidate surplus weapons, the operations staff began the research by contacting the California Department of Justice, as well as Los Angeles County Sheriffs to see how they did this. How can you get rid of those guns? As you know, the guns that are registered to the county has to be reported to the Department of Justice in California. The Sheriff's Department at that time, 2020, referred our department to the county's procurement department, the Internal Services Division, to figure out how we can manage and how can we best dispose of these weapons. At that point, they were referred to what we call govdeals.com. Govdeals.com is a nationwide liquidation clearinghouse that auctions surplus equipment from across governmental and related entities. It regularly handles auctions of surplus firearms from police agencies around the country. These auctions are regulated and restrictive. Surplus service firearms can only be sold to dealers holding what they call Federal Firearms License, FFL, not to the general public. The California Penal Code Section 32,000 further restricts the sale of what they call non-roster guns to only active sworn personnel, not civilians. Operations staff arranged to have these items listed for auction on January 19th, 2 days before the Monterey Park shooting. So on Monday, when Esther Lam, and I'll tell you how I learned about this. On Monday, Esther Lam from Supervisor Solis' office contacted me and said, "Are you guys selling weapons?" And I told her, "No, not that I know of. Let me research it." And I did. And that's what I found out. She sent me the link to the govdeals.com, and that's where it was listed. It has you to have probation there. So I said, no. So I got a hold of Chief Fletcher, we got a hold of County Council and said, I want to stop this. So they immediately pulled that off because we don't agree with selling weapons, putting guns back on the street. And they took that off the list immediately. And you're going to get a report from the OIG next meeting regarding the, I believe, the Monterey Park shooting, and you'll learn that the weapon that was used was not the revolvers, the pistols that we're talking about today. The individual had a different type of weapon. So from my perspective, is that we're not in the business of putting guns back on the street. We're not going to be selling guns for any kind of monetary gain, whether it goes back to the general fund or goes back to probation fund. That's not acceptable. And I'm glad the Supervisor Solis put the motion and also instructed the CO's office to work with other county departments to prevent this in the future. Because had Esther Lynn not brought this to my attention, who knows what would have happened, right? And I'm also glad that part of the motion is going to direct you, the POC, along with county council, in collaboration with probation department, to investigate the auction of the firearms and ammunition. And just so that I'm clear, there was no ammunition being sold, only firearms. So I welcome the investigation because I want to make sure we get to the bottom of it. But most importantly, that doesn't happen again. Because the chief that was here had one mind, and then somebody else would come in and come with something, some other idea. It should be something that is the philosophy of the county, not of the department, whether you sell the guns or don't sell the guns. And this, I see the gun sales much different than any kind of like vehicle resale. Like you want to salvage a car and you want to send a car back in for a trade-in or what have you. That's different. Firearms is another. I've been a victim of a drive-by shooting. I can tell you, I don't like guns on the street. So with that completes my report, Chairman Carrillo, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you so much, Chief Gonzales. Before we get into commissioners' comments, Wendy, do we have any comments from the public, please?
Sorry, took me a second to unmute myself there. I am looking at the raised hands. I don't see any. If you'd like to make a public comment, please click the raise your hand function. Janae, have I missed any?
No, we don't have any.
Okay.
Hands raised.
No hands raised on this issue, Chair Carrillo.
Thank you, Wendy. Commissioners, if you have any questions on a lot of things or all the things that the chief outlined, please start raising your hands. And while you're thinking about formulating the question, I'll jump in. I guess I'll jump in with the gun issue, Chief. You know, you mentioned that these are not the guns collected through probation, but what happens to the guns that are collected during searches from the SEOs?
Those weapons that are collected or confiscated in the field normally go to the law enforcement agency of that area, the jurisdiction, so they can process them.
Okay. Also, so now that you're aware of the gun sales, what are you doing about pulling them off that website, and is there plans on how to dispose of them?
Yes, what we did is actually Kyla coach from the board offices reached out to me because the problem was when we were trying to get the sheriffs to do it last 2020, it didn't work. I think we have a new sheriff now that would be more open to assisting us. So she's going to be working with us and the sheriff's department to dispose of those weapons. I'd rather see them get destroyed. What I've seen in the past, and in other states, I've seen them where they melt down the guns and make manhole cover lids to talk about reducing violence in the community. Those are normally guns that get confiscated. I've also seen the guns been melted. They just take them out to a place, I think it was in San Bernardino County, or Riverside County, one of the counties, where they actually have a place where they actually melt the firearms. And some departments, police departments, used to dump the guns in the ocean. That's not environmentally sound either. So that's not an option. So I'm hoping that with our partners now at the Sheriff's Department, they'll be able to help us to destroy those weapons. I don't feel comfortable storing that many weapons in any facility because who knows what could happen, right? Earthquake, something damaged or what have you. So no, the sooner we can get rid of them, the better.
No, I
Commissioner
completely.
Carrillo and,
Yes.
and the chief, I just actually received an update that might be helpful. The sheriff's office has already reached out, and we have a tentative meeting for this afternoon to talk about next steps and how they can help us as the chief just described.
Oh, terrific. Thank you.
Wonderful. No, this is, I'm grateful that Chief, that Esther Lim reached out to you, Chief, and made you aware of what's going on. You know, it's so interesting with, you know, all these mass shootings, and it seems to be like the first question is, where did they get the gun? Who owned the gun? Was it a ghost gun? Was it purchased and so on? And so, you know, obviously I'm grateful that this was circumvented and we're stopping this, but can you only imagine those guns landed in the wrong hands, and then being traced back to you, the county, the people. It's like, you know, so I'm grateful that this was detected and we no longer have to worry about that. I'll move away from the guns and just ask you one more question, and then I'll open it up for the commissioners. You know, I met with Father Boyle from Homeboy Industries a few weeks ago, and I was surprised that he told me that probation sent out I guess an email, maybe told him in person that they will not be having any church services. You mentioned chapel, so that there was going to be sort of postponing those services because of staff shortage. Is there anything you know about that, especially at Central Juvenile Hall or the camps?
No, I think with the additional staff coming in, we're able to have the church services. I've not heard of any cancellation other than I talked about for the holidays. But yeah, the attendance of our staff is still challenging. We do bring people on deployment. We do bring people in on the overtime basis. Unless Chief Fletcher had heard of anything else, I haven't heard of any cancellation of church services.
I have not. We have not recently canceled any services. We had to cancel visiting over the weekend of December 31st and January 1st due to staffing levels. But that's the only time since October 1st that we've had to cancel any of that. So I'll certainly follow up with Homeboy Industries to see what they're referencing and rectify that.
Wonderful. That excites me. So I'll start attending some of the church services at Central, and And I'm looking forward to that. So with that being said, I'm going to move over to Commissioner Meredith.
Yeah, mine's more of a comment than a question, and I've mentioned this to every chief for the last 22 years, and that is we do not have a good public affairs or information officer to go out and highlight all the good things that probation does. We have two sides to this department. We have a lot of success stories, but we don't highlight that. What we see is all the negatives that come out, and unfortunately, we have somewhat of a demoralized department because of that. And things like the gun issue. This is misinformation that's out there that if we had a good PAO or PIO, that we'd be able to clarify exactly what was transpiring and not have rumors or innuendos or misconceptions going on to what's happening. So I'm just going to put it out there. I was talking to Steve Whitmore the other day about the fact that we need to find a good PAO or PIO for probation to put those stories out there. And it's every chief. It's not you, chief. It goes back to all the way back for 22 years. We need to do this, and we just simply don't do it. For instance, I hear all the time about the $1 billion budget. The activists don't realize that $1 billion budget covers all aspects of probation, not just the youth custody management. So I'm just tossing that out as a suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Commissioner Kakani, you're up.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to, sorry, one second, or a few things I wanted to follow up on. Chief, you had mentioned around priorities that you were, at least last year, really focused on compliance with the BSCC and the DOJ settlement. But you didn't mention kind of a focused effort to comply around the use of OC spray and following kind of the protocols that have been laid out, I believe, in the detailed plan. And just as a reminder, it was shared by the Office of the Inspector General as it relates to the decontamination policy, that in the sample of cases they reviewed, it was only followed 47% of the time at Central Juvenile Hall and 57% at Barry J. Nydorf during at least the first half of 2022. So I just wanted to start and make sure that you were aware of those numbers and the failure to comply with the OC spray protocol as outlined in the detailed plan.
As far as the protocols, from what I'm told, again, and what was shared with me is that every time there's a deployment of OC spray, they make every effort to decontaminate the youth, provide them fresh clothing, monitor them for one-on-one observation, and also have them assessed by the medical staff. Now, if the protocol is not being followed, then obviously we need to take a look and see why it's not being followed and who's not following the protocol. But that's very clear. Everybody knows that's what the policy is.
Right, so I'm not saying that there isn't a protocol, but I'm saying that there's a failure to comply with the protocol. So I'm just making sure that you are aware of that the Office of the Inspector General reported that your department is failing to comply in any sort of substantial way with that protocol. Again, given the sample they reviewed, it was 47% of the time at Central Juvenile Hall that protocol was followed, and 57% of the time at Barry J. Nydorf it was followed. So I want to make sure that you're aware of that, because you didn't mention that as a priority going forward. And I was hoping that there would be some mention of how you were going to ensure that your department was in substantial compliance with the protocol when using OC spray.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna go look at that, but I think with the plan to phase it out right now, we're gonna have to make sure that we do that, and I'll report it the next time when we give the update, that we are gonna be eliminating the OC spray, and how's that gonna go going forward for the rest of the facilities, not just those units that I identified.
Right, but given that it's taken, 2019, I think, was when the motion was passed. And there was a commitment by 2020 to phase out OC spray. We're now in 2023. So I understand the hope and the intention to phase it out, but the fact of the matter remains that it has not been phased out. And so I just, it's a little bit shocking to me that it feels like this is coming as news to you, that your department has not been in substantial compliance with the OC spray kind of use of force protocol. So I do hope that there is kind of some examination of these numbers, a closer read of this report, and something that resembles an explanation as to why it hasn't been followed, and what I don't know if it's the executive team, management, down to supervisors are doing to ensure that the OC spray protocol is being followed, given that it's continuing to be used. It hasn't been phased out yet. So I'm looking forward to I don't know.
I made a note of that, so thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to lift up, again, out of the Office of the Inspector General report was the use of force review, and the fact that, there's a whole protocol where there's supposed to be a timely submission of like use of force incidents to the, I believe it's the Force Intervention Response Team. And again, in the OIG's review of data and cases, actually none of the cases that they reviewed were timely submitted to FIRST, or the Force Intervention Response Team, for its independent review. And given kind of the increasing concerns around use of force, including the November 30th incident that was raised by the Office of the Inspector General at the last meeting and in this report, what are you all doing to ensure that the use of force protocol is being complied with? I'm just, reading here that there's supposed to be a referral to the IAB, and then the FIRST team is supposed to engage in concurrent review. And so, it just sounds like none of that is happening on a regular basis. So if you could just explain what's being done to ensure, again, that there's at least compliance with this piece of the detailed plan, the DOJ settlement, and just ensuring that there's some sort of review when use of force is occurring.
Yeah, I see Karen's hand come up, but I can tell you that this one of the areas that it was impacted was like a staffing, but I don't want to use staff as an excuse. Chief Fletcher, you have your hand up?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. So that is something that we are absolutely focused on. So we do have a team of folks that work on the FIRST team. One of the biggest challenges that we had was the submission of paperwork, especially for our staff that were deployed from the field into our juvenile halls. And so for a very long time, they didn't have access to the PCMS system, which is where they would document uses of force. So that's the probation case management system. Approximately 60 days ago, we actually fixed that problem and gave them access. So what was happening is, so Karen comes in and I'm working in juvenile hall, I engage in a use of force incident, my shift is over and I leave, and I didn't have access to that system. So that's going to help us quite a bit. The staffing is always a challenge, but that piece of it, we should see a marked improvement in our staff being able to complete the paperwork and get that submitted in a more timely manner. We are also working on a plan for the backlog of cases that has been noted in reports, and we'll get that up to speed. And then moving forward with that access, we're hopeful that we'll be able to monitor that more in real time with that extended access to our field and deployed staff.
So you said you're working on a plan. Is that like a months-long plan? Is that a weeks-long plan? Just curious what the timeline is.
Yeah, we can actually, and I can submit something to Wendy with a timeline of what that looks like. We're working with our monitor for the DOJ settlement agreement and our deputy director who oversees that process to see what is realistic, right? We don't want to overpromise, but some of those backlog cases, we think with that proper documentation, we can get those cleared fairly quickly. We already have staff reaching out to the staff who were involved in those incidents to try and gather that as quickly as possible. So it is underway, but we can certainly put something in writing and submit that and share it with the commission.
Sorry, just follow-up question. So you stated that 60 days ago, this issue of, I don't know if it's non-DSOs, if that's the correct terminology, like not having access to PCMS. So let's say like that's the beginning of, I don't know, December, end of November. But this has been a long-standing issue. I mean, the OIG report actually focuses on the first half of 2022. So why is it that it takes so long to create this, like what sounds like a simple fix?
Right. And I think certainly, in Adam's shop is our information systems folks. So we've been working with them to provide the access. We also want to make sure that our staff are trained in how to use it. And that took a little bit. And because the deployment and the overtime staffing levels are so high, right, because it goes across the entire department for our sworn staff, we wanted to make sure that folks using the system used it properly, and that the reports, once they were submitted, got to the supervisors appropriately. So some of that training, it took some time, but it certainly was an internal thing that we were able to fix.
So are there use of force incidents from the first half of 2022 where documentation hasn't been submitted and it hasn't been reviewed?
We're actually going back and looking at all that and trying to make sure that everything in the backlog is addressed. And then moving forward with the access that the field staff have, that will improve greatly. And so we are looking at that whole process and looking at how many cases are sitting there, how do we prioritize those to get them completed. But staff on the first team and other staff are already reaching out to make sure that the paperwork is appropriate, and really trying to dedicate extra staff to be able to kind of be those runners to make sure that we get that paperwork and get those cleared as quickly as possible.
What is the backlog of cases? Do you have a number?
You know what? I can get that for you. I don't have an updated number. It's quite a few.
Okay, like in the hundreds?
Yes. I'll get the commission some of those details.
Okay, just wanted to note that feels deeply problematic, given that there may have been kind of use of force incidents from early 2022 that we're barely reviewing a year later, and what that means for young people and their safety, consequences, training. Just feels like deeply problematic. And the last question I have, or set of questions I have, are connected to Chief Gonzalez's mention around bringing in more programming to the camps, and I guess primarily the camps. And it seems like this has been a long-standing issue. So I don't know, can you speak to what the barrier is to bringing in more programming? I know from the, I don't know. I mean, we've heard issues related to contracting. We've heard issues related to clearances. Like, what is it that you can identify as the barrier to bringing in more programming?
Sure. So contracting is a significant challenge, right? The RFP process for the county is very lengthy, sometimes as long as a year and a half. We have been talking to board offices in particular District 1 that may be able to help us. The CEO's office has also been working with us to see, what delegated authority looks like, and is there a way that we can shorten the process? Is that creating a list of approved vendors so that we can select from that list when we need services and want a particular service? But it is a county process that we have to go through. We were able to bring in some providers through board offices and their authority in terms of contracting. So hopefully that is going to work, and we are actively working with a board office to be able to do that. And Adam oversees that. I don't know if you had anything additional that you might be helpful.
Just that we're looking at every tool that is available to us. And again, these are county protocols and practices. We're all bound by them, trying to find whatever sort of other tools may exist. So one of them is master services agreement that Chief Fletcher alluded to, where we bring in, we have a list of services that we know that we need. We have a list of approved vendors. It should decrease the timeline. So we're actively meeting with our team to see what is there and what levers we can pull to make sure that we're expediting. And also, as Chief Fletcher mentioned, we've been using the board's delegated authority and CEO as well to move forward on some things through motion. We don't love all of the motions all the time because, obviously there's report backs and things like that we have to spend time on, but this is really important. It's a huge focus of ours moving forward, and so we're committed to making sure that we're using anything at our disposal to move faster to get contracts and purchasing in place.
Okay. And just, I know Commissioner Meredith had mentioned like the activist misconception that probation's budget of $1 billion is dedicated to juvenile institutions, but I think most activists are pretty aware that it's around $409 million. And do you have a sense of like what part of that $409 million is dedicated to programming, or is that a separate budget?
So no, it's all in there somewhere, but we would have to go and bring that back. So we're happy to do that. We can pull out services and supplies dedicated to camps and halls and provide that information to the commission for sure.
But that lives in that juvenile institutions budget of
It does, yes.
$9 million.
Yes, it does.
Sorry, last question, and I promise I'll be done after, or last set of questions, and I promise I'll be done. This is related to the auction, govdeals.com, and the sale of arms. I understand, Chief, that you said, this process was started something like 2 years ago, and that somehow you weren't aware of it. And that it only came to your attention because essentially the LA Times had reached out to Supervisor Solis, and then, Ms. Lim was able to contact you, which seems, I don't know, it's really concerning to me that, there isn't a more structured way to be aware of these things. And so I'm not sure like what efforts, or if you could share what efforts you've made to find out kind of who is responsible for this, because you are in charge of the department, and presumably someone within your department moved this process forward. And if there's kind of a better way to ensure that you have access to this information without it kind of coming from someone from the LA Times, who then tells the justice, who tells the board office, who tells you, which feels wildly inefficient and kind of a recipe for disaster, and that many things might be missed. So, how do you go about ensuring that you have access to information like this, and also who's responsible for moving these things forward? Just so something like this doesn't happen again, while I understand it goes to someone with that federal license that you mentioned, and
Yeah, no,
I understand
appreciate
it's not necessarily going to the streets, but it's still.
Oh, if we can just hold off for just a minute. This is Steve Edwards with County Council. I appreciate the lively discussion. I just want to remind all that the gun sale and the recent board motion were not agendized for this meeting, so we want to be careful to be consistent with the Brown Act's requirements. My understanding is that the most appropriate way to be in compliance with the Brown Act on this issue is maybe to have it agendized for a future meeting. So if I could just suggest that we don't allow the discussion to go too far in that direction, so we can make sure we're keeping consistent with the Brown Act. But
Okay, I can.
Apologies for the interruption.
No worries. It just, there wasn't an interruption earlier, so I thought it was maybe okay to ask those questions, but I can certainly hold off on continuing to ask that line of questioning until we're until it's properly agendized, and I'll pass it to whoever's next.
Thank you so much.
Your pleasure.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to circle back for Commissioner Kakani. We were just talking about the use of force reviews. So that is one process, but I want to make sure to clarify that a lot of those incidents, or all of those incidents, are being reviewed by the administrators on site before they even get referred. And so I don't want anyone to think that nothing gets reviewed until the first team. That is another process, but certainly all of the uses of force and incidents are reviewed by the facility administrators even before it goes to the first team. So just to clarify, but we will provide you all the other details that will be helpful to you as well.
Thank you, everyone. Moving on to our next commissioner, Vice Chair Jackson, you're up.
Thank you, and thank you, fellow commissioners, for your lines of questioning. My question is for Chief Gonzales. I certainly appreciate the progress report, or the update on your priorities. I'm a little surprised, though, that the department is not prioritizing a strategic plan, right? There are so many different open items with varying degrees of urgency. If you ask, depending on who you ask, maybe all of them are urgent. And we don't want it to be something that sits on the shelf, as Mr. Patino has sort of said in the past. It has to be a living, breathing, effective thing that we're using to guide us to, make progress. We want to see the priorities become achievements. And so I'd like to hear any plans the department has to implement a strategic plan so that we can shift from the transactional reactive stuff to the more strategic stuff, because I feel like what's happening is just there are a lot of poor planning and poor evaluation, and that's one of the issues that the department probably has.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Adam, you have your hand up?
Sure, not to just to by way of update, there is some engagement with a consultant that we've done very recently. So in the last week or so, what we're trying to, given everything else and many priorities, we're trying to be very targeted and specific in how we roll this out. We don't want to be tone deaf, frankly, to our staff. Our staff have consistently shared concerns about safety and security in our institutions. Obviously, we have the staffing concerns. We have quite a bit of data based on surveys that we've done of our staff, town halls that Chief Fletcher has conducted of staff, and conversations that you all have had, frankly, with staff, and some of the recommendations that you have made, OIG and others. So we have a lot of data. What we're looking to do is consolidate that as much as possible and really build something that is kind of a living strategic plan, as opposed to, like you said, and I have said, something that is 85 points and dies on somebody's shelf. So what we really need is kind of, even as the chief has shared through his and our and the board's priorities for the upcoming year, rolling those up in a way that is meaningful and strategic and points our department forward. So often, we spend so much time looking backwards, unfortunately. But to your point, this forces us to be more proactive, more forward thinking in how we really move the agency forward. So we should be engaged. We're engaging them now. We should have a scope of work and a contract in place over the next couple of weeks. DHR is assisting us with that effort. So we should be getting to work here in about 6 weeks or less to really move forward on that. So thank you for the question, and it is something that is definitely higher on our radar.
Sure. Thank you for that. And I think it's helpful to have a consultant. I certainly think that we're due for another sort of evaluation and to sort of revisit some of our priorities too. And sometimes it's hard to meet those outcomes with all the things that we're inputting into our efforts. Is it more appropriate, or can the department hire someone permanently who has that function so it's done on an ongoing basis versus just kind of someone who's helping you develop a document? I feel like at this stage, the department needs someone that's embedded in its structure to maintain that responsibility, to make sure that your things are kept together.
That's a great suggestion. I think something we can bring up with DHRO, who's helping us with this effort. And if they allow us to do that, I think that's an excellent idea. Because you're right, we don't want this to just be a flavor of the month. This has to be ongoing, living, moving, and also bringing our partners in to be more well-rounded than just us saying this is what we need. It's us working together with our partners to say, what do we need? And how do we get there? So Adam, we can positively follow up with DHR on that and see if there's an opportunity to do that.
Certainly. And Commissioner Jackson, you're right. So what ends up being missed is the implementation of all of the recommendations. And those who follow the department closely know that we've had, I don't even know how many consultants, even in my tenure, I've met with many and sat in focus groups, and we miss the implementation often. And so to have somebody embedded here makes all the sense in the world. Somebody who knows us and has worked closely with us to help really kind of carry whatever recommendations forward.
Thank you for that. I intend to follow up in probably the next couple of meetings on that.
Commissioner Garcia, you're up.
Thank you. Chair-elect Jackson just said much of what I was going to say, but I want to bring up a few other points. So, Chief, after the last time you came and laid out your priorities, I emailed you to say how grateful I was that you came and did it. That, you know, when I think of working in my day job and with my employees, and my job is oversight of their work, right? What I want from them is for them to tell me what they think they can accomplish. And then I ask them, did you do it? And what obstacles did you know, if you didn't? I would like the POC's relationship with the department to, in some ways, be analogous to that, where you have a strategic plan and our job is to keep it alive and to hold you accountable for achieving the plan that you guys create. So I think a strategic plan done in partnership with us to some degree would really make a lot of this work better. To that end, also, there are two priorities that I did not hear that I just wanted to bring up. One I know is a priority because it's a board motion, and that's the decarceration of girls. We've been talking here a lot about concerns of sexual assaults of young women who've been in custody in the past. And I'm of the mind that the best way to prevent that in the future is to not incarcerate young women. So maybe you said it briefly, but decarceration of girls should be a top priority. The other thing that we have been talking about since we began that have seen very little improvement, I think, is the collection and dissemination of usable data about what happens in the department to us and to the public in a routine way, you know, a data dashboard, that sort of thing. And it's difficult to really evaluate the priorities you've talked about without data. So much of what you said is a repeat of what you said 3 months ago. Not that I think that these are goals that can be achieved in 3 months, but without something like a data dashboard or strategic plan that includes measurable, quantifiable benchmarks, you know, I'm left sort of wondering, is this all talk or is this real progress? I'm not sure. So again, I really appreciate you coming here and laying out these priorities. But I think Chair-elect Jackson is right that the more that this looks like a strategic plan, the better we'll all be able to work together around it. So thank you again, and that's my suggestion.
I appreciate the input and it's just an oversight on my part, because I did have that in my rough draft about the incarceration of girls, because that came up a couple of times. Just didn't have it in my notes right now. And the data, it's been taking me 2 years to try to get a dashboard from our staff, and technology, collection of information, our systems are so antiquated that I'm trying to find one like off the shelf that we can use. It's not that complicated. It shouldn't be that complicated. And I was just talking to Adam, I think last week or the week before last, to see what can we do to get the dashboard going. And I have hindrance. Every time I try to turn around and ask for data, it's like, oh, what do you need it? Well, because I'm the chief, I'm asking for the data. I need to find out what's going on. So we need to really move systems forward. And you're right, everything we do should be data driven so we can measure what we're doing, if it's working, or pivot if we have to. But if we don't have that, then how do we do that? And my biggest goal was to try to get the dashboard on the public facing website so you can quickly and easily look up what's going on in the probation department. That's been so challenging. So when I talked to Adam a couple of weeks ago, I said, what can we do? We got to find some way of doing this or changing this. And he has one of his staff that's really good at this. Maybe he can be pulled offline to help us get this going. But this is all ties into the strategic plan. You got to have the strategic plan and the data collection to go along with it, just like you said right now. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sam Lewis, you're up.
Thank you, Commissioner Carrillo. Simple, I have a question. Chief, would it be possible to obtain from field probation officers that supervise juveniles the total number of youth under their supervision individually? So for each PO, how many youth are they supervising? And then also for adults, same question. For each PO, total number of youth that they are supervising. And the reason why I'm asking for those particular numbers is as we look at programming and staffing issues, if hypothetically there's a decrease in the number of youth or adults that are being supervised, let's say you have a caseload you have 3 POs and each one has a caseload of normally 20, and now that's went down to 10. Could you fold that 20 back into one PO and then permanently staff juvenile hall with the PO that doesn't have a caseload anymore? As I understand the number, and I could be incorrect on this, but as I understand the number of juveniles and adults that are under supervision in the community has decreased. And if we could get those numbers specific to each field probation officer to determine, is there a way to fold some of those caseloads into and fold those caseloads into different POs, and then the POs that are freed up from supervision, reallocate them to the juvenile hall so we have permanent staffing in the SYTF and the other facilities.
Absolutely. That's something we can pull and we share with Gwen and she can get to all of you regarding the numbers. I get rough numbers, for example, 5,000 young adults, 21,000 adults, plus not to mention the AB 109 numbers. But I see Chief Fletcher has her hand up. Chief Fletcher?
Sure, just to add to that, Commissioner Lewis, the CEO's office is looking at our staffing currently. And by the end of February, they will have a recommendation to the board. So they're doing a complete staffing analysis, and they are looking at the exact same thing that you just asked for, to determine where we can best use our resources and what we should be doing moving forward. So that will be very informative. Our staff here are working with representatives from the CEO's office, so we will have pretty concrete numbers in February that we can share as well.
Thank you, Chief Fletcher. Will a breakdown be specific to each probation officer? Like, I understand there's 5,000 youth under supervision, but how many does that mean? How many probation staff are actually supervising each one? And then the difference between, for instance, summary probation and actual supervisory probation, because as we know, summary probation, you don't check in. And so understand, like, if we have 5,000 kids, what if, and again, these are just hypothetical numbers, 1,000 of those kids are on summary probation. So that's 1,000 that shouldn't even be counted in the 5,000, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Right, we can certainly look at it. So the CEO's office with our staff have looked at it by caseload and by unit, right? So the placement unit or the whatever, right? So they have done that analysis. We can get a breakdown by caseload, which is helpful, but I think that is attached to that report. So it'll be fairly easy to access once that report is complete.
Thank you.
Your answer?
Sorry, I'm being slow with unmuting. I just wanted to echo what Chief Fletcher just said, that I am also very anxious to see the report, and we'll make sure that we invite someone from the CEO's office to explain it either at one of these meetings or through communication with you all individually if you have questions. And I think Commissioner Lewis, what we can do is make sure, I think I understand what you're asking, and I believe what Chief Fletcher is saying, that is how it was researched. I'm not sure how much of that will be actually shared in the report. So if there are questions such as the ones you're asking that aren't shared publicly in the report, we can ask for the detail behind that when we see the report. And so I'll make sure to make a note of that and then follow up to ensure that you receive a copy of it.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, seeing no other hands. Chief, thank you so much for your time. We are moving on to item number 6. We will hear a report from the Los Angeles County Probation Department on general department updates, including the future plans for additional SYTF sites. Chief Deputy Bettino, please proceed. Good to see you, Adam.
Thank you. Commissioner Carrillo, appreciate it. Chair Carrillo still, I think. Uh, really appreciate it. I'm going to step aside here momentarily. We have Marianne Smiley with us. Chief Fletcher's here as well to speak to some of the operational things. I just wanted to just kind of echo a couple of things that the chief already shared quickly and get into a little bit more specifics around facilities. So we are continuing to meet with stakeholders on permanent facility discussions. A lot of that is happening outside of public spaces for obvious reason. I think it's really difficult to get any meaningful work done here around like deep discussions, really digging through what are Title 15 and Title 24 requirements for facilities, what are some of the things that we know about community engagement that's already occurred, and how do we weigh all of that. So we are having some inclusive meetings offline. When I say inclusive, that means folks from JJRBG and some other spaces to make sure that we're being as transparent as we all can sort of be. Folks are able to share and express concerns about various sites and things like that. So those conversations are ongoing. The hope there is to formulate really a series of recommendations around these sites, and the recommendations would come to the JJRBG, to this body, and to the board for further discussion. So those are underway. We did meet, and this is specific to Campus Kilpatrick now, we met with the State Public Works Board. Campus Kilpatrick was built with bond dollars. I'm going to misspeak. This is not my area of expertise, but there was bond dollars that were used to build Campus Kilpatrick. Therefore, there are specific guidelines and requirements. Anytime we make any kind of modification to the site, we have to check with the State Public Works Board specifically. So we met with them this week. They have a package from us that details all the work that has been done or being done. We're confident that their review will be quick because we haven't done anything about, there's a couple of words that they use around occupancy and change of facility and things like that. Really what we're doing are security enhancements to fencing into some other areas, not moving walls, not moving cottages, no new construction, things like that. Nor are we using state bond funding for any of the work. And so we really hope that we'll hear back in a couple of days if they have any questions, and then we'll be able to move forward with the work. ISD is lined up and ready to implement as soon as we get the go-ahead from the state. The staff sleeping quarters are also underway. We're working with ISD really closely on that. The reason I raised the sleeping quarters, of course, we know that the staff at Kilpatrick are still on a 56-hour work schedule, and so we need to accommodate those folks so that there's area for them to sleep. We're trying to get a more firm timeline on when that will be done. And I can present that. I've sent some emails today, in fact, and in fact, our team is meeting with ISD as we speak on all of these kind of the home-like improvement and some of this other work that we're moving forward. So specific to the home-like, the chief mentioned this already. We have some units at Central that are about 95% done, but specific for SYTF, units TV are renovated. So there's sound baffling. The day rooms are much quieter because we've done some paneling and things like that to kind of decrease the noise. For those that have been in there, it's really echoey, really hard to have any kind of meaningful programming there. There's new furniture, floors, paint, plumbing, and we have 21 young people in Unit TV now. Unit RS is about to undergo renovation. Units Z1 and 2 are almost done as well. I think we were out there a couple weeks ago, and I think the work is even further along now. So that, again, new furniture, new flooring, new paint, new sinks and plumbing in the bathroom. It's much brighter. It has a much better feel than it did. So once we can move young people into Z1 and 2, which will be in a couple of weeks here at the most, then we would start on units X1 and X2. That's the next round to be done. We met with the JJRBG, did meet yesterday. 3 takeaways from that meeting and kind of for our next meeting. Identification of some resource gaps. So we're going to have presentation around higher education and vocational training from our internal folks, trying to get an update on where we are with some of the educational pathways for our young people and the career technical pathways as well. We do have some young people who are interested in Pine Grove, and I'll I'll ask Mary Ann to provide some of that update because she has exactly, what's going on with that, but just want to flag that. And then the JJRBG members wanted to take another trip out to Barry J and Campus Kilpatrick because it has been some time since the members have been out to those sites, at least some of them. I know some are with the courts and are there fairly often, but some of the other members wanted to get out and just kind of check out how things are going for the young people. So that's enough out of me. I'll ask Mary Ann, who's been kind enough to join us, to give a little bit more update. Thanks, everybody.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Marianne Smiley, and I will update you on SYTF. So currently we have 79 total youth and young adults in SYTF. We do, as it was mentioned earlier, we currently have 11 at CBK. We have 3 that are in transitional housing, 1 through ARC, and the other 2 through New Directions for Youth. We have 1 DJJ young adult that arrived the first week of January. It was mentioned about TV. TV, correct, is the newly renovated unit. We were in RS and we did recently move to TV. And as stated before, we do have 21 young adults in that particular cottage. The total units that we do have at Barry J SYTF units are X1, X2, Y1, T, V, and we do have a few youth and young adults in Unit O currently. That's not yet an SYTF unit, but we do have a small handful of individuals in that particular unit. Regarding Pine Grove, we do have 3 that are eligible, 3 young adults that are eligible and they're interested in transitioning to Pine Grove. So the caseworkers and I have to work on handling and coordinating an MDT to get all the providers, legal counsel involved, then develop a court report, get approval from the court, and complete all the paperwork for Pine Grove to get that approved. And we'll hopefully transition those 3 individuals to Pine Grove. We have a future second group that's interested, and that's about 5 to 6 youth, young adults that are interested in going to the Pine Grove, the fire camp. There are currently, a few of them are currently in high school. So we should probably, the next second group that comes up, they'll probably graduate from high school and then we can transition them to Pine Grove as well. As far as programming, so with CBK, it was mentioned Marley's Mutts is on its way. So that's positive change. And it's the dog program, dog grooming and training will be conducted here at Kilpatrick. And they did drop off the equipment a couple weeks ago. So we have 2 kennels, we have 2 crates that are in the cottages currently. And we're hoping to start that particular program at Kilpatrick probably the 1st or 2nd week of February. There will be 2 dogs. 3 youth will be assigned to 1 dog. And we're right now trying to coordinate all the responsibilities and expectations for the youth and of course the staff and the programming itself. A jail guitar doors is currently at Barry J and Kilpatrick. We're expanding that particular program. The youth and young adults really enjoy this program. So jail guitar tours in February most likely will add more services to the extra units that we have. As far as vocational, we did start the construction program. It's a vocational pathway. So they offer plumbing, electrical work, construction, and that is 4 days a week at Barry J. The culinary class that we've mentioned previously, we're hoping that begins. I know you're fully aware that Kilpatrick did have a culinary class, and we're hoping to start that sometime in mid-February to end of February. AdBot started in January. That's a new program we added. And in February, we should be adding a couple more street poets and usual suspects. Also, I'm working very closely with DYD, Mr. Nichols, to assign the credible messengers to the SYTF units. So he's been out to the facilities, both Barry J and to Kilpatrick. He met with most of the staff, most of the caseworkers. He's met with the youth, the young adults, walked them around to all the facilities, all the different SYTF sites. And we are excited that we're going to start hopefully in February. And we're looking forward to having a credible messenger at each SYTF site at Barry J and then at Kilpatrick.
Thank you. Wendy, do we have any written or live public comments for this item?
I don't see any hands raised. Please click on the raise your hand function if you'd like to give a comment, or if you're on the phone, dial *3. Janae, do you see any that I don't?
No, none on this end either.
Okay. Back to you.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Commissioner Lewis, your hand's up.
Thank you, Chair Carrillo. Director Smiley, I have a couple of questions. For jail and guitar doors, do they go into SYTF, and is this on weekdays, and are they going into all of the facilities? Are they going into W1 and X1 and X2, and are they doing anything in the pre-dispo in W1 and W2?
So to answer your second question, I'm not sure as far as the non-SYTF units, which ones they're going into. I know they do service the non-SYTF. I don't know which units though, so I'm not sure if they're in W, but they are going into some of the SYTF units and they're going to expand. Let me double check and look at my calendar to see exactly which units, because I don't remember offhand.
And then this, the next question I have is in terms of the culinary program. What organization is looking to actually provide that particular service?
I'm not sure, because that would be Dr. Jesus Corral with ED Services that's working on that.
Okay. And for clarity for both the POC and for the audience that's listening, both Healing Dialogues in Action and ARC received from County Council yesterday the final contracts for credible messengers. And to be exact, as I understand it, there will be 4 credible messengers assigned to Campus Kilpatrick, 2 from HDA and 2 from ARC. And then in Barry J, there will be a total of 12 assigned, 6 from ARC and 6 from HDA that will provide mentoring and other creative conflict resolution, restorative justice, and a number of other curriculums on both second and third watch. And so there'll be overlap, and this will be 7 days a week. So you'll literally have credible messengers on site every single day that that camp in that particular hall is operating. And for clarity, Supervisor Solis has funded ARC now for almost a year, where we have 2 credible messengers going into Central Juvenile Hall, just totally separate from DYD. This was what Supervisor Solis wanted, and they've been going in on a regular basis in Central Juvenile Hall.
So I do have your answer as far as jail guitar doors. They are in Y1, X1, X2, R, and S.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner. Director Smiley, I have a question for you before I pass it on to Commissioner Garcia-Lays. Can you tell me about the visits that these youth are receiving at Campus Kilpatrick and also in the compound? Just do they get visits? Do you see any difference in their attitudes? Anything you can share about family connection?
So they do get visits. They get visits at Kilpatrick on the weekends, and then we also offer special visits. The two youth that have children, they also receive visits, and they're part of the regular visitation for one youth. He completed parenting classes with his girlfriend and his child. So she comes regularly with her mother on the weekend. And then we have another youth at Kilpatrick that just had a baby, and he started last week parenting classes with his girlfriend. She has not brought the baby yet. The baby was born, I believe, mid-December, so she's not quite comfortable bringing the baby out just yet. But he did start the parenting classes last week. She is part of the special visit, and she will come in weekly as well. And once she's comfortable bringing the baby into the Kilpatrick, she will bring the baby and have special visits as well. And then as far as Barry J, they do most of our SYTF youth under 18 receive a lot of visits from their families. They have a lot of support from their parents. And it's the ones that are over 18 is where we struggle. Parents are not as supportive. They don't visit as much as the younger 18-year-olds. And we'd also provide special visits during the week as well for the youth in Barry J. So we have various times depending on the family members, the parents, the cousins, the girlfriends. And if they can't come on the weekend during a regular special visit or a regular visit on the weekend, then the caseworker does set it up where they can come during the week when they're available. So we've had special visits 8 o'clock at night during the week because that's when the mother was able to bring the young siblings, and the sister wanted to bring the nieces and nephews. So we have many special visits.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Garcia-Lays?
Thank you. So it's hard to keep a sense of outrage and express it over a year long, but I just think it needs to be said. The compound being the home for secure youth was the last option, the last choice, the worst possible outcome, and it has become the de facto result. I think a lot of the blame for that really belongs to the board for not choosing a permanent site and letting us move forward, pulling the trigger on a decision. That's not to say the department could not have done more, I think, to make that happen. But I am just really disheartened that the most we've been able to achieve is really the use of Kilpatrick as a step-down program, even though that sounds like it's going great, and everybody else in the compound. That's all.
Sorry about that. Commissioner Kakani, you're up.
Thanks for that, Commissioner Garcia-Lays. Just wanted to say that I couldn't agree more. I had a question about the transition criteria. And I know some time ago that transition criteria was shared around, displaying positive good behavior in the unit, displaying positive good behavior in school, attending school, following basic expectation guidelines. Just curious if that's still the transition criteria that you all are using to move young people, and really how you are deciding where young people go. In this, you've named a number of different units, Kilpatrick, so just what is the process in terms of how a young person goes from one unit to another to maybe one day Kilpatrick if they're lucky?
So you are absolutely right. You did mention. So there is a reclassification process that we do work with, and we meet together SYTF team, which is all the caseworkers, and they're all DPOs. So we meet as a whole, talk about the youth, and we already know pretty much which youth, young adults are ready for Kilpatrick. And it's based on behavior. It's based on no incidents, no violent incidents. And it's also based on programming. That's a big portion of the reclassification to transition to Kilpatrick. So programming is part of SYTF, and some of these youth and young adults do not want to program. They do not. We've brought in and we're expanding jail guitar doors, like I mentioned earlier. Some of them just do not want to participate, and those are the ones that actually had mentioned that they wanted more music programs, and we're still trying to add more music programs. We still don't have enough. But those that are programming, actually sitting there, not just signing the sign-in sheet, they're engaged, they're listening, they're asking questions, and the providers provide this information to us as well, because this is all shared in the court report, that they're learning, they're taking away from the individual mentoring or group classes that they take with the programs. So programming is a big part of the reclassification. Also participating and meeting with their caseworker weekly and their clinician. Some of them still refuse to meet with their clinician, their mental health clinician. And also the forward-thinking journals. They're now starting to work with the journal and the caseworker who participates and sits, and including DMH clinicians that sit and go over the journals with them. So that's pretty much what the process is. And when we talk about it with the SYTF staff, we also include the juvenile hall staff, because the juvenile hall staff know them as well, very well, on a daily basis. So we ask them who they feel is ready. And we also ask the providers for input and suggestions. So we do include everybody. And then we conduct a MDT. It's a transitional MDT. We include LACO, ED services. Did I answer all your questions?
Thank you. I guess just one other, as there are some young people who like aren't ready, aren't interested, whatever, are kind of engaging, in my mind, like a traumatic response. Like what additional support do they receive if they are struggling with engaging for whatever reason? And I don't know the extent to which, I know Ms. Fletcher shared that, visitation, the last time it was canceled, I think was December 31st or something to that nature. So I'm assuming that they have, as you shared, regular visitation, but, are there any other barriers that they're experiencing because of staff shortages? And I don't know if maybe that's two separate questions, kind of what additional support are they receiving? And then also, has there been any disruption in like access to education or programming because of staff shortages?
So as far as the youth that are having difficulty programming or accepting SYTF, it depends where they are. Sometimes they're not ready to talk. Sometimes they're not ready to speak with the clinician or their caseworker. So we continue to try to meet with them in a smaller group setting, like a small focus group with the clinician, with the caseworker and SYTF team to talk about and find out exactly the reasons. Or we do a behavior contract with them. So it just depends on the actual young adult. We also speak to mental health and add more sessions weekly, in addition to what they already meet with them. If they meet with them once, we try to add an additional session for that week, or maybe 3 sessions, depending on what's going on with the family, what's going on with the youth. There is a particular youth that has shown improvement, but he's still challenged. And the mother, and he has a baby girl, and the mother schedules special visits on a regular basis, and she regularly cancels. And we've noticed he acts out prior to the visit and after the visit when she doesn't show up. So we've offered to pick her up. We've made all these different suggestions, different times. And for whatever the reason is, and we're going to be patient, we've asked DMH for assistance to start reaching out to her for parenting, for family therapy. And we're hoping that we see some signs of improvement with him. He's asking more questions about transitional housing. He's asking the clinician more about parenting classes, which is huge with this youth. So we're pretty creative. It's individual. It depends on the youth and the young adult. And obviously it depends on the parents. You know, if they come to visit, if they don't visit. And I know I missed a couple other questions that you asked.
No, thank you. No, that was super helpful. Just the second question was if there was any interruption in programming or access to education connected to staff shortages.
Yes, there are times that there is interruption where they don't have a face-to-face, where they don't go into the classroom setting, but they do get the instruction, they get the packets, the high school packets, and they do participate that day and complete the packet. And I know December, we had a lot of youth that tested positive for COVID. So we were under quarantine for many weeks and isolation. Providers could not come in. They could not go to school. So there was a lot of lack of programming during December, during the holiday months. But as of yesterday, I know one of our units, TB, they finally their quarantine was lifted yesterday. So now we're going to start plugging in, of course, regular services for that particular unit.
After how long? How long have they been in quarantine for?
I know December. I don't remember when. I think it was mid-December.
So a month and a half almost?
Mm-hmm. And they've had activities. We provided activities. So all of the holiday activities that we had at Kilpatrick. Kilpatrick also was in quarantine for several weeks. So TV was not the only, actually Kilpatrick, I think, was also about 3 weeks, a little bit over 3 weeks. But we did provide activities, and we went into the units, we had caseworkers, SYTF caseworkers, including the juvenile hall staff. They provided holiday activities, decorated snow globes. We did gingerbread houses, decorated stockings, and they were still under quarantine. They just didn't get the outside providers like ARC, HDA coming in, but we tried to keep them pretty busy during the day-to-day when they were in quarantine.
But I'm imagining, I feel like I'm not hearing you acknowledge, like it does impact, right? Like if you're not kind of going anywhere for school, are visits impacted when a young person's in quarantine? I'm assuming it's not in person.
Yes, visits are impacted. When they were in quarantine and isolation, we did have to cancel some of the special visits.
And then obviously no programming. I understand that your staff was trying to come up with activities, but no like outside programming.
Correct.
For a month and a half. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lewis, you're up again. Sam, you're muted.
Rookie mistake. So I always say that I'm going to give credit where credit due, and definitely want to recognize Director Alfaro. Last week when I was in juvenile hall, there was a young man who was trying to have a special visit with his family. Last week, not the weekend. And his family had canceled, and they were trying to get it. She went above and beyond to make sure this young man was able to see his family who came from out of state. And you could watch the young man who was really upset and angry literally decrease. Like his anxiety, his anger, and everything just melted away once Director Alfaro made a special trip to let him know that it's scheduled and it would happen the following day. And the following day it did happen. I also would like to say that in some instances, one of the things that, and I haven't heard anybody say anything about this, the young man, and we've worked closely with him, who Director Smiley mentioned, who acts out before and after, is 17 right now. He'll be 18 in February. This young man, and this is just being honest, he's assaulted a number of staff, and we work with him, like, and staff work with him. Director Williams is working with him. When this young man turns 18 next month, things could be very, very much different for him. And these are things that we have to look at as a oversight commission of what's happening to staff, because it was a teacher 2 days ago, I believe it was. Before that, it was a director. And before that, it was a staff. And so when these things happen, once a youth turns 18, these things can cause that youth to end up going into the county jail and being charged as an adult. And so figuring out how do we deal with these things with youth that are challenged, that have not been able to deal with their trauma, even though that their services are provided, and that mental health professionals are there to try to work with him, that you have CBOs trying to work with him. So far, I've only seen a few youth that actually go down this trail, but the honest truth is, and it is not being said on this commission, this young man could very well do the wrong thing in a number of weeks when he turns 18, and then what happens? And this has been something that he's done the entire time he's been at the SYTF, repeatedly. And there are not a lot of young people like this. And I'm trying to figure out, how do we, because I know probation is trying, I know mental health is trying, I know the CBOs are trying. We have to figure out a way how to help these young people. Like there has to be, either we think outside the box, we bring in specialists, I don't know what we do, but the fact is that this has been something, and we had another young man that did this repeatedly also. And then when he turned 18, two staff were severely harmed. I mean, bad. And like, he's charged. He's in the county jail right now. And so when we see this behavior that's continuous when they're underage, and we know that it's going to continue when they turn 18, we have to figure out a way to put them on a different path. I don't have all the answers, but I'm putting it out there that I see this. Probation staff that are on this call have seen it, and are aware of it. And we need to talk about these unique cases as an oversight commission, because these unique cases can actually go really bad. And then what? And so I believe it's our responsibility as a commission, but also as leaders in the community, to understand that safety is for everyone in the facilities, whether it's staff or our young people. But as human beings, we have to look at this and be realistic. If it was me working in there and it happened to me, I try to practice empathy. Like, how would I feel? And I have not heard anyone talk about this. And this is something that just happened with a teacher, I think 3 days ago. But we're not talking about this for some reason, and I know we're all aware of it. And as a commission, like, what are we going to do with these unique cases? They're not a lot of them. That's the thing. There are not a lot of kids that respond this way that are underage. But for those that do, we need to think outside the box. We need to either look nationally, or like, what do we do to help these kids get on the right track so that they don't end up in prison for decades? This kid is not sentenced. He's going to come home, or he's going to end up doing something really bad next month, and then he may be gone for decades. So I pose that to this commission, not only to this commission, but to the leadership of probation with these unique cases. What do we do? And we need to start figuring this out, and figuring it out fast, as these kids will be in these facilities long term. for 2, 3, 4 years instead of months, as probation was once tasked to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Lewis. Director Smiley, you want to respond to any of that?
I concur. I concur. We've worked very diligently with this youth. And we've seen improvements, little baby steps that he's made, and to us, they're huge. We've recognized it. We told him constantly having an MDTs. He shows up, sometimes he doesn't. His mother is very appreciative of our hard work and that we do find positive improvements that he's made. But it's difficult. It's definitely very challenging, and we do need to do more.
Thank you so much. You know, Director Smiley, I want to just thank you for all the work you're doing. I know this is a lot on your shoulders. I've heard nothing but great things about you. And, you know, folks like you don't get enough praise and kudos. So I just want to take a moment to thank you. And you know, Sam, Commissioner Lewis, I hear you and what you're talking about as like a commission, but I think that, you know, you might be coming out from a executive director of ARC that has access to these facilities, but there are a lot of people who want to get in, and there's a lot of work that wants to get done, that needs to get done. And as you know, it's trickling. Only certain people are getting in and getting the work done. And I know these are special cases with this individual youth that we're referring to, but we have to look at this holistically across the board. SYTF, boys, girls, all facilities, all camps. And there are people willing and able to get in to want to help and do these things that you're referring to. And I think that probation has to open those doors and get this going, because if it's, you know, we're done, I think I'm done, I'm sure everybody else is done with these excuses about staff shortage and contracts and everything else. But I just really hope that as we move forward, it's a new year, that we just think about all the things that we have to gripe about and to address them, but to find these solutions. So with that, moving on to item number 7. We will hear updates from Executive Director Wendy Julian on the POC's progress towards completing the strategic goals, which will include updates on OC spray outstanding data request and girls decarceration. Wendy, please share your updates.
Thank you, Chair Carrillo. And so we're in an interesting time right now in terms of the OC updates. I think you heard from Chief Gonzales that we're working closely with the department as well as with the Office of the Inspector General to do the report backs as the department is implementing training and staffing changes and the actual phase out in the specified units at Central Juvenile Hall. We will be providing our second biweekly update to the board on February 1st, along with OIG, and there will be quite a few things to say in that report regarding the meetings that we've had with probation, the things that they have been doing, as well as some concerns about steps forward. So attached to the agenda today, you have just the most updated OC spray reports, but not an updated reflection on those reports as we've been providing before, because Dr. Góngora is working on it when we have a more complete set of data for December and January to share, so you can see it on our report next week or at our next meeting. We'll attach it to the agenda. We also have had staff and commissioners at Central Juvenile Hall. I'd like to say thank you to the staff of Central for allowing that to happen, as well as partners with OIG and the Defense Bar, Public Defender's Office, APD, and the panel to be able to help us ask questions effectively of young people to understand better their experiences with OC spray, and also their experience when staff are trained to use other alternatives to OC spray. I'll also add that we have a couple of outstanding information requests. We're working through OIG to receive those information requests. Some of them are related to our ability to properly inspect facilities, and we're about to start our 2023 inspection process by developing an updated template and going out to those facilities. So we will continue to work with OIG to ensure that those documents are provided to you. And then finally, I'd just like to say thank you to those of you who asked the questions about the chief's priorities. I think it's not coincidental that they coincide with my reports, in particular, the issue of girls' decarceration. So girls' decarceration is an issue in which the POC was specifically instructed to report back to the board on the progress. And there has been some very exciting progress, in particular through the work that I've done with the Youth Justice Reimagined, the Youth Justice Work Group on gender expansive youth, in looking at some of the root causes of incarceration of girls and gender expansive youth and alternatives. It's really an incredible group of people that are providers and advocates and folks from the county who have some excellent suggestions around the opportunities for diversion and placement and alternatives for young people. And then also a lot of experts from organizations that have thoughts and ideas about how the county can really invest in alternatives to incarceration for girls and gender expansive youth. So that has been a very promising activity. I also know that the TMDTs, the team meetings that occur have continued to occur at the facilities led by the Defense Bar, the Public Defender's Office in particular, and I'm looking forward to being able to have a more formal report back from them to this committee. The problem is that we haven't seen the results and the numbers as effectively as might have been hoped or expected by the board and by the Probation Oversight Commission. So there are actually some similarities in this process to what I discussed a couple months ago about the review of the POC's overall progress toward our strategic operating goals, which is that there have been a lot of goals met and the end result isn't the result that was contemplated, which in this case would be a significant reduction in the number of girls who are incarcerated, girls and gender expansive youth incarcerated in the county. So again, thank you, Commissioner Garcia-Leyes, for bringing that up. And I think the connection between this and our work on the sexual misconduct hearings and research cannot be missed. So with that, I will turn it back over to you. I will say there are no hands raised for public comment, Chair Carrillo. So unless that happens in a minute or so, we can just go on to questions about that report.
Thank you for the update, Wendy. If there is any hands that come up, please let me know. In the meantime, Commissioner.
We sure do. I actually see, yeah, so we can go ahead and go to public comment quickly. And if anyone else wants to give public comment, please click on the raise your hand icon or dial *3 on your phone. And we'll start with Ezekiel Nishiyama. Ezekiel, we're going to unmute you and you can start. Okay. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ezekiel Nishiyama, Policy and Community Organizer with the Anti-Recidivism Coalition. As a young person who was incarcerated in our juvenile halls and volunteers weekly to go inside to provide mentor services, I look at my past and present and see how many of the same things are going on. I thank the POC for putting up the inspections report, and for myself, when reading the inspections report, it is very relatable. As a young teen, age 15, I lived in these living conditions. Not having access to a restroom, the feeling of boredom, feelings of anger and rage built up, the teachers in school not having a connection to the students in her classroom. I felt all of these feelings and emotions. I look back and don't know exactly how I was capable of making it out, but I did. I was able to see the light within the darkness, and through the people that I met, even though I was in a dark place, it was these people who installed a lot of hope, a lot of wisdom within myself to change, to see the light in the dark place. Through these peers and people that I surrounded myself with, I was able to shift my negative lifestyle into something positive and be a positive peer to my other peers that I surrounded myself with. I was able to shift my life and make more investments into changing my lifestyle as I was able to make it out of the compound. Many of my peers didn't. Many of my peers still are in prison. I am now age 21 and spend my Saturdays inside the compound. I see the younger version of myself in many of these youth, and I know that we are in a time where many of these youth will not go to prison. That is important because we as a collective have to make a bigger, brighter investment into the youth and young adults inside before they make the worst mistake and see the prison system or our county jails. These youth need our love and support. And
Ezekiel, that's your 2 minutes.
Chair Carrillo, that's hard to cut Ezekiel's comments off. But I know we have stayed very clear to those 2-minute comments throughout our meetings. That's the last hand I see up, and thank you for being here and for your comment, Ezekiel.
Thank you, Ezekiel. Thank you, Wendy. Commissioners, any comments or questions on this item? You cut me off, Wendy, when I was thanking you for that great update, so I'll say it again. Thank you. Okay, seeing no hands, we're moving on. Thank you. So item number 8 is for matters not posted on the agenda to discuss or to place on a future meeting agenda for action. I personally have 2 announcements. First, we have made great progress in the recruitment process for our new commissioners. We have reviewed all the applications and conducted a number of interviews. We will bring the final candidates to the POC at one of our February meetings to vote on, and then send the recommendations nominees to the Board of Supervisors. Thank you to everyone who applied. The candidate pool was very impressive and the interviews have been enjoyable. Second, how do I say this? So this is dealing with the issue of Supervisor Solis and Hans bringing forward a motion regarding the issue about the sale of weapons. So we're gonna obviously, that's gonna be an issue. It's gonna be a board motion coming forward, and it's already been tabled, so we'll talk about that in the future. Commissioners, is there any announcements anybody wants to make?
I have something I'd like to agendize for maybe next meeting. So I'd like to agendize a discussion and, possibly make revision recommendations to a couple of the ordinance terms. I think it's appropriate after 2 years of this commission being in place for us to reassess our needs in a couple of different ways. And so I'd like to address and resolve the issue of having access to information. I think OIG, that's something that's either being worked on or considered. I'm not sure how we address that, but I definitely think that there are limits to our ability to oversee if we don't have full insight, especially when it comes to seeking information concerning the safety of youth in custody. I also, after being vice chair for some time, believe that the $5,000 allowance ceiling should be lifted. Most commissioners don't come close to, exceeding that number. But as POC leadership, I've exceeded that number in attending meetings and doing inspections, and would like further consideration of the terms that would be more fitting to the demands of the role. So
Thank you, Vice Chair Jackson. Anyone else? So moving on to item number 9 is an invitation for members of the public to address the commission on items not on the agenda. Wendy, will you please facilitate public comments for us?
I see Commissioner Canales' hand.
Yes, thank you so much. Wendy, I'm sorry. Sorry. I would like to see some presentations so that the general public could also see, like from PICO Youth or Youth Justice Coalition, programs that might also be able to help facilitate some of the youth that maybe some of the other programs cannot connect with or get close to. You know, because I am concerned if there's, you know, issues in some of the camps. And I really appreciate Director Smiley and her comments about, you know, really individualizing the youth's needs and not just having like this blanket solution, and everything that you're doing, like to make sure that the family member and the girlfriend can get up there and everything like that. And so with that also, you know, sometimes the message going in or the program going in might not be sufficient for that youth. Not that it's not a great program, but I think that there's a lot of other programs that really need the opportunity to be able to get in and be able to get through to some of these youth, and not just, you know, say like, well, they're going to turn 18 and be funneled out of our system anyway. And so I'd like to put on the agenda that we have a presentation, a brief presentation from some of these programs that have been actually trying to get in for quite some time, so that the general public can see as well, you know, what is being shut out or not allowed or somehow not being granted access because of whatever hoops that you, speaking of hoops, you know, there's that Hoops for Justice, amazing program. And there's just so many. So I really would like to see something like that moving forward. Our chair, Commissioner Shea Jackson, I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dolores.
Okay, so no hands up for public comment. We do have, okay, we've got a couple of them popping up. So go ahead and click the hand function or dial *3 on your phone if you'd like to make public comment. We'll start with James Maddox. Welcome back, James. We're gonna unmute you in just a second. Okay, ready to go. James, can you? Okay, we can hear you.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. I'm back to the chagrin of many. Commissioners, thank you, thank you, thank you. Especially to those of you who ask and have been asking the difficult questions. Please keep up the work. There is a lot of obfuscation going on and excuse making, but those of you who are asking the difficult questions, thank you and keep up the good work. There is a lot, I think in the literature, you all might want to read about adultification. 17 years old is a child. It's not a young adult or it's not a young man, okay? Or a young lady. I would encourage you to go into the literature and read something about adultification. As far as obfuscation, I think the county council did a very nice job of tabling an item that was already, you didn't have to agendize it because the presenter brought up the topic. So if you read the Brown, and he used the Brown Act as this big boogeyman of, oh, we have violation of the Brown Act. No, you weren't violating the Brown Act. You were talking about something that was brought up in his presentation. So again, folks, keep pushing back because there are a lot of people who need your help, and please keep asking the tough questions. If they squirm, you know you're making them uncomfortable and you are getting to them and you're making the point. And there are people out there who need your help. And remember, under 18, they're children. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Ezekiel, I saw you raise your hand again. Do you want to give the rest of your comments? You're welcome to. Let's see. Okay, great. You're unmuted, Ezekiel.
Hello. Again, Ezekiel Nishiyama speaking. Just wanted to finish my comment. I was cut off, but again, thank the POC. I think the biggest challenge that I see as a young person that goes inside into juvenile hall is the glorification of gang culture in our juvenile halls and the environment. Just last week, I had a PO this last Saturday asked me what I think that issue is, and I responded the environment being one of the #1 things being the biggest issue. If we want to see a change in the future of our juvenile justice system, the environment has to change. Look at the living conditions youth have to live in, down to the simplest things of having access to a restroom. Barry J. lacks on. I know as for myself, when I go in there, it's very healing for myself to be able to get back to these young people. I am one of the youngest credible messengers that goes inside right now. So I have a pretty close age range to the young people. And I see the younger version of myself in all of these young people. I understand that, you know, they are in a dark place, and it's up for us to show them the amount of love and support that's going to help them see the best version of themselves, because that's what CBOs, the Inside Out Riders, ARC, a few probation officers that really names I could remember. And I do see these POs when I go back inside and remember the support they showed me. So it takes a collective of support really for our young people. And I appreciate the amount of support that's been given to our young people, the ongoing efforts in changing the system. We know we have a huge system up in front of us, so it's all about how we can just show these youth the love and support they never had. Thank you again.
Thank you, Ezekiel. That's the end of our public comments. Chair Carrillo.
Thank you, Wendy. Okay, thank you, Wendy, and all of your comments. As a quick reminder, be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel at LA County POC. To receive reminders about our upcoming meetings, visit our website at poc.lacounty.gov to subscribe to our email listing. It is now 2:35 p.m. I joined this meeting. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.